Welcome back to another episode of a very basic space program. You find me in orbit with our little test probe here. We're gonna send some of these to some other planets, but I've got something else to show you at the very start that might be important for you. So please join me. Right, you will see that at the moment I am actually transmitting some science. Now, I should point out, this is because, let me just show you. First of all, this is our orbit here, okay? You can see that we've got the ecom. We've actually aligned ourselves pretty much with the ecom craft, which is annoying. If we actually had an antenna on this, it'd be perfect. Our periaps is well above the atmosphere, so I don't have to worry about that. I've just realised we haven't done a single pass yet. One thing is, if you go, and I'll show you this actually on this screen, if we come over here, you can see we've got a roll because I induced a roll before we ran out of RCS. But if we go to antenna targeting, and we look at this here, so if I do, I can't target the stations on the surface through this window, okay? What I can do, and this is something odd, you can do the center of body. Now, if I do the center of body, I want you to imagine this is our craft here. Its beam will go to the center of the Earth. So if you see, if I put this here, so it's there, it's going to cover this area here. You can see, if we go around there, we might get over the top of Goldstone because that's on our orbital path. So we probably hit Goldstone. Madrid, we ain't going to get. And Canberra we're not going to get either. So at the moment, given where our orbit is, we wouldn't be able to transmit any science. However, what you can do is, if we click again, you can go to azimuth and elevation. You can also go to orbit relative and stuff like that. So I've actually been playing around with this, and you can see we've got it set to orbit relative minus 55 and minus 20. If I actually come in here and I go minus 55, let's just put it, I just played around with it, just put that as minus 20, there we go, and apply that. There we go. You can see that if you look at it, our target there is in the range. So we can play around with that. You can use this, you can use the ones, and I've just done this manually to force us to send some data. What I would suggest is, let the data build up before you do this. There's no point doing it and then having to babysit it for a long time. This megabyte data is taking a while because, it takes time. But in actual fact, you can see there you go. It's going to take 50 seconds to do that. And all the other data is pretty much going as well. What we could do is we can actually stop that, and it should do this at the same time. Now, these are all acquiring data fast enough to actually back up the buffer. So there you go. If we actually stop all of these, there we go. We stop transmitting all of them. They'll build up, and then we can go, okay, send these, send them all. There we go. So these are actually, you can see the data stored in there is now going down. We're running out of data being stored in the whole system, and this can go on for a while. So anyway, we can leave this craft now, and ideally we will come back to this every now and again, download some data from it, but we need to be looking at our next planetary body. So let's go launch some more stuff, I think, or at least plan to. Yeah, let's plan to launch some more stuff. Right, so I have gone through the transfer window planner, and I've put a few different things in. So we've got a couple of different windows I want to target to start with for Mars. We also have a third window that's a potential better target. It uses a little less delta V. Now, remember, we're not trying to get into orbit here. We're trying to do flybys. We will have to use a very different structure of craft to try and do orbit, because we're going to have to capture. We have to do a capture burn. Around Mars, we're looking at maybe 2,000 meters per second, and Venus even more. So those are going to be quite different designed craft, and we could potentially adapt the Discovery 4, so sort of 3, 4, 5 variants to do that. They have the potential, I'm guessing, when we change them around a bit. But again, we'd probably have to change the transfer stage and things like that, and probably a bigger launch. We will see. So what we'll do, I'm just having a look now and going, right, what are we going to have ready? This is going to be ready well in time. This one at 125 days, potentially, we'll go for that. And then it leaves this third one, Discovery 5, which is going to be tight for anything that we do, unless we decide to delay one of the Mars missions for 60 days, or we decide to rush it. Now, we could rush it for the Mercury. and I am thinking we're going to do that. This is going to be tight because this is going to require 5,130. Discovery 5 will take its transfer stage is about 5,400, 5,300 in it, and then its actual probe itself has about 400 meters per second on it. The only problem is we know that transfer stage probably has to burn something to reach orbit. So unless my launch is perfect, it's not going to have all of that when it hits orbit. So we may have to think about that a little bit. The other two, they should be fine. They should be fine. So this is a bit of a risky one. So we're gonna put some money into it. We're gonna rush it. It would have probably been cheaper to do a rush on this one, and then yeah, but we're gonna rush it. 24,000 is not pennies, is it? So that's going to take us down to, this will be finished in 141, and then we need to know the rollout time for this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to let reconditioning go on, and what we can actually do is we can have a little prediction. Once this loads up, we could actually predict it, but I don't know. I think we're going to have to put a bit more in. How much is rollout for something similar? Explorer, you take a day. Icarus takes a day. That takes less. Let's imagine we go for a bigger pad. That would be, yeah, even so it's only going to be a day. So I think we go for it. I think we go for this. I think this is going to roll out tight. Let's just do the maths in the head. That's going to be 140, 141. It's going to be very tight to that Mercury window. But that is, yeah, I think we're going to go for it. I think we're going to just leave it as it is. I don't want to spend any more on it because it's probably going to fail anyway. So I'm going to run forward to our first departure. And we'll prep this up and get going. Right, we are now within literally a day of our first Mars window. We're going to go for a launch with the Discovery 3. Discovery 4 just finished its final prep. We have Discovery 5, which has got 13 days left on it. Well, yeah, 13 days and 7 hours, which is going to mean that for about a 2-day rollout, we should be okay for the Mercury mission, which is good. I have not put another craft in for that Mars window. I'm not going to do it. We do have a Jupiter window. That, however, is very much a big push for us. That would require a new launch vehicle. So that's probably not going to happen unless I put a new launch vehicle together. So let us launch Discovery 3 and let's see how this goes. Right, here we are on the launch pad. We're just going to get our RCS ready, I think. Oh, we can't actually. We need to slow down. So what I've done is I've actually targeted the moon because we're going to launch into the plane of the moon. We're going to put our RCS on, get all of our thrust ready. We're going to be aiming to go into the plane of the moon because it's most similar to the plane of basically the sun, the planets, everything. It makes our transfers a little bit easier. It just hopefully will save us a little bit of delta V. So what we're going to do is we're just going to speed this forward a bit to about 2 degrees is where I'm tending to launch. Maybe a little bit earlier. Yeah, let's go a little bit earlier because we're going to use all of this stuff here. So there we go. Everything's good. Engines on full. Right. Fire those engines. Get them going. We have good light. And the solids are go. Right. So now we are going up. And I'll try and do this one sort of reasonably quickly. We might actually do a little bit of timey-wimey warp. In fact, we will. Once we get into our second stage, we will do a bit of timey-wimey warping and do that. Because that second stage is a long time. And yeah, so we've got our little solids burning off as always. We're just going to pull it over just a little bit just to get it going. Because we want to get on this. We want this to be the most efficient launch possible because I really want to see just how much fuel we're taking out of that top stage. That transfer stage. If we're taking a lot out, then we may redesign or may redistribute the use of that Discovery 5, and I may actually just send it to Venus. We may find the next Venus window and send it there, because although we have missions now to land on Venus, we have missions to orbit Venus, and that craft can't do any of that. What it can do is actually get some science and flyby, and it can get a big chunk of science on flyby, so that is something we can do with it. You notice we don't have the roll problem on this. That's interesting. So it must have been something with the launch vehicle's first stage on that little test launch we had that's actually been playing up quite interestingly. Right, so we're going to come up there, and we've got, I forget how long this first stage burns for. This is a really nice sort of long burning stage, isn't it? Once those solids have gone out, you have quite a long time just doing your stuff. We have banked over reasonably quickly, which is not a big problem actually. I think we're reasonably efficient at that. We're going to keep going. We're about 800 meters per second, 900 meters per second. We're coming over, and this isn't actually bad. This is not bad at all actually. This is, if this was my standard launch so far, I'm not unhappy with it. And we're just going to keep on bringing this down. And what I'm going to do that I don't normally do is I'm actually going to I'm not going to drop it down as rapidly as I sometimes do. I'm going to let it just glide down. We're going to try and reduce the amount of steering losses on this first stage. Steering losses when you're not firing prograde when we're not firing prograde, you sort of get steering losses and things like that. I'm also trying to reduce the drag losses that we're going to get, but they're going to be minimal now because we're actually so high up. We're not going to really feel those. So we're just going to bring it down here. I'm keeping an eye on my apoapsis there, not too worried about it. We'll probably sit at 20. That's a nice position, and let us catch up with what's going on with our prograde marker there. Obviously we're relative to surface at the moment. That will change to orbital soon, so we need to be aware of that. We've got 10 seconds to go on this stage, and I'm actually going to make a jump because I want those fairings to come off slightly later. That was a thing. There we go. Fire that. Our RCS is on. Oh, we have a problem. We have an engine out. We have an engine out. Oh no. No. Shut it down. Oh dear. Right, this is why we have backups. So next choice is, can we launch that craft? We're going to let this thing just settle down. I don't know. Yeah, we can get this to orbit, so this thing at least can go to orbit because I don't want nuclear material flopping down. Let's settle it down. Right, so we need this thing to actually activate on decouple. And I don't know if it's going to have the power to, so let us go fight. Yeah, there we go. Right, so we can actually rescue this thing at least to orbit, and at least then we can potentially get some science, and it can do something for us. I'm not sure what it will do. So what we can just do now is we can just timey-wimey warp this thing, and we've not actually done a launch with this before, have we? So this being an upper stage, I hadn't even thought about. I suppose we could actually replace the upper stage on the Javelin 3 with this. It would be pretty much a direct replacement, and it would give us an interesting craft. Actually, I hadn't even thought of that as an option. I did think of using this engine, but I was thinking about having to retool things. But yeah, this would actually potentially save us quite a lot. That's annoying. Anyway, so this is going to be a fail. This is going to be a failed mission, which means we may need the second of the discoveries to actually fly by Mars. So that would be the third of discoveries to fly by Mars. So that's interesting. So yeah, always have redundancy, I think, is our learning point from there. We may not have enough discovery crafts. I may put another one actually into build. There we go. And you know what we'll do? We'll fire that, and then fire that, and we're gonna put this thing up as high as we can actually, and it can do its stuff. If anything else, I can actually use it for future just markers. We may end up just destroying it though. Actually, it may be a bit too much for us to. I don't think it's going to get the altitude that I'd really like, but we'll see. We will see. It's definitely going to be above the lowest point, so it's going to stay in orbit. But whether we get a decent altitude where it's going to be able to transmit stuff, I don't know. We'll put it up there though. It does, if nothing else, it's another craft in orbit that we can potentially gather science from. So we'll do that. We want to go to, let's have a look. We don't have signal. Of course we don't have signal because I've lost that. So okay, this one potentially we're going to have to manually do, aren't we? Let's have a look. So to get that, turn that on, turn that on. The reason the RCS is running is because the RCS uses up the excess HTP that's actually in the tanks that the main engine there can't use. That's why it runs. So what I'm just doing now is I'm just getting in here, and we're just actually manually turning these on. It's interesting because you can do it through Kerbalism, that you know, because Kerbalism only works when it has signal. It's a bit of an annoyance there that you get used to it, and then you have to, in situations like this, just do this. Right, so they're just going to run. I think most of all these have been completed by the test craft we've sent up, but we can send this up, and we will probably end up ditching this in the future anyway. So There we go. It's going to just sit there. What we will do is we're going to, let's have a look, shut down the avionics. And let's just check it is actually, yeah, it's actually charging. So it is charging even though the experiments are running. We've got a number of experiments running. They're all on. It is charging. Not all of them are actually collecting data, but they're not transmitting. So we've got a decent sort of block of space there. So I suppose we better go and see about actually successfully launching the next one. So let's get back. I will bring you back when we are ready for launch of the next craft. So we are now on to Discovery 4. Discovery 3 is orbiting the planet, doing a little bit of science for us when it finally gets a connection. We do have some upgrade points. I should really spend them. Let's just do that now. So we're going to put them in the R&D, get that going a bit more. There we go. Let's actually check our tech situation. We've got early landing is coming first. I think that gives us the heat shield for Gemini, I believe. I'll have to check that. And then we have early life support and ISIU, which will give us the improved life support for Gemini. So that means that our Gemini will be able to start doing bigger missions in about 200, 300 days, which is good. And then we've got these other things coming through. We do have a bit of science. This has come from basically just probes, or the Discovery probes orbiting have actually transmitted that back, so that's quite useful. So what I'm going to say is this episode will launch Discovery 4. Next episode, we're going to have a look at the Mercury-Mars situation here, because that Mercury window is close enough to the end of the Mars window that I've marked off that I'm pretty sure I could actually send something to Mars. So we'll launch Discovery 4 now, and then next episode, we'll launch Discovery 5 with a mind that it could do either of these. So we'll launch it for the Mercury window, but with a mind that it could do the Mars window if we don't have enough. If we have to use some of the fuel to get to orbit, we will potentially retask it to do the Mars mission. I don't know. We'll see. We're leaving the window open for Mercury, and then of course we've got this Mars one here. I'm tempted to put another Discovery in the line. In fact, I'm going to duplicate that, and we're going to rename it as well. We're going to call this Discovery 6. Primarily just because I would like the option to send something to potentially to Venus, and also Mercury windows come round quite often. So if we decide to go to Mars, potentially we could go to Mercury. I don't know. I may change up the actual launch vehicle to give it a bit more delta V, put some different strap-ons on it to try and get us that one. But we'll see. We'll look at that when it comes. So we're going to do this rollout. I will see you on the pad, and we're going to try and send something to Mars finally. Here we are again, ready for our launch. I've gone a little bit further than I would have liked to, but we're going to go anywhere with this. So, time to launch. Fire those engines and get going. Right, we're going to set everything ready. Again, we're aiming for the moon. Waiting for our main engines to go up. They are on speed. Fire the solids. Off we go. I didn't notice in the last launch whether the solids were sticking to the craft as much as normal. They probably were. I'm going to assume that they were because they always do. I'm going to start turning over now. So, yeah, this I don't like engine failures at any time, but this is particularly interplanetary missions are really annoying because you have windows. One of the reasons why I always build at least 2 craft, and often it's nice to have something else in return, in reserve, just in case. The big problem is if you have limited pads, you're always going to have to wait a day, 2 days, particularly, and later on, it becomes even more so. Oh, we have one stuck. That's going to be problematic, isn't it? That is eating away at our delta V that I cannot afford to lose. But you know what? It's just going to do it anyway because it hates me. Yeah, one of the things I think is that you lose those optimal launch slots, and then you end up with suboptimal ones, and sometimes it's actually worth, deciding you're going to be suboptimal anyway, and actually going, you know what, I'm going to launch at this time slot here because, well, I can have 2 then no matter what, and planning for it, putting a little bit of delta V extra on board and things like that, increasing the margins. Yeah, that is worrying me, actually, the fact that's still on. That's going to be dragging us back with a bit of mass and things like that, and it'll be interesting, actually, the impact that's going to have, because those are not light. The casters are not light. Now, this is luckily is a Mars mission, so it doesn't have to be the most perfect of launch profiles, but if that was the Mercury mission, it would be going to Mars now, because that's still attached, and I'm going to be feeling it all the way along. So we're just going to swap those over because I know that we need to actually fire this second stage before we actually get rid of the fairings. and we can actually start to just pull this down a bit. I've been a bit late in doing some of that actually. We just pull that down a bit. This is actually a perfect example of a bad launch, but at least we're going to be able to see what this upper stage does, hopefully, if it lights. The big problem, I love these engines we have on the upper stage, but actually I'm surprised we haven't had more failures, shall we say. They have a reputation for failure, particularly when we've got two of them. We're sort of doubling that failure chance. You know, you only need one to fail. What you really want is both of them to fail, both sets of engines to fail, because then it's got two of them out of the way, instead of just the one. And that's one of the big problems with clustered engines, actually, is what I would probably say. We're going to stay at 15, I think. I want a reasonably low orbital height, but this might be a little too low, actually, thinking about it, but we'll stick with this. I think we'll just let it gain altitude as it's doing. So there we go. We're going to stage that, fire away, and we have a good light on both engines this time. No problems. Right, and I think when we get to 90, I think we're going to be good enough to get rid of the fairings. There we go. And unveil the craft. Now, obviously, we don't need to unveil solar panels. We have to protect solar panels. We do have these radioisotope thermal generators on the side there. That's important. One reason for making sure the previous craft actually got into orbit was, I think it's a little rude crashing those back into the planet, if I'm entirely honest. But, you know, you each to their own. If you choose to do that with your space program because you're just like, I don't want to put debris in orbit, then that is your choice. In reality, the orbit that craft ended up in, it has quite a low periaps. It will be coming back to Earth reasonably quickly. It's not going to be staying up there permanently. So, you know, a few years, it will be back in Earth, if we're entirely honest. It's not like it's in a geostationary orbit or anything like that. Right. So we're up to about almost 150 kilometers apoapsis, and we're going to let that keep climbing. Actually, I've done all the predictions and the planning for this at about 200 kilometers, primarily just because it's a good range. It's a good range to aim for. Some people will probably put their stuff up at 250. I don't. It's not my jam, not my bag. You know, I'm gonna pop this a little bit more. We're just gonna keep. We're gonna speed it up a bit. Again, we're going to be watching just to see how much of this upper transfer stage we have to burn. So we're about 4,000 meters per second now. We've got about 3.6 kilometers per second in the tank, which actually should be enough. On a good launch, that should be enough to actually put us into orbit. What I am doing, I'm also looking at this marker here now, because we're now coming down to the range where I need to start slowing down my time warp a little bit, because I need to be going, okay, I need to be go up a bit. So that is something to think about. We need to keep that in mind. Our time to apoapsis is looking reasonably healthy. I would like it to be a little higher, but we can play with that a little bit. So we've got about a minute to go. So we're going to drop down to normal time, and yeah, we're going to get this thing going. I don't know how long this episode has been going on for now. We may do this transfer at the start of the next episode. I don't know. We'll have a think about it. Right, well, now I'm going to not do that. I want to go the other way. That's where I want to go to. I want to go to about there. That's it. And we're going to bring this down to about there. In fact, I want to do this to 0. Let's get that to 0. We're going to hold it at 0.18. So what if I go up a bit? Is that going to push it up and down a bit? It's going the wrong way, so we're going to go down there. Okay. And we're now going to close in. Are we going to have enough in this stage to get to orbit? If we have enough in this stage to get to orbit with this upper stage, I'll be very happy, actually, because that will mean the Mercury mission is potentially on. However, it does mean I then maybe want to put another one of these in at some point to go to Mars would be an option. We'll put a little bit more head on there, just like so. Just to sort of cancel that out. We've got about 25 seconds left on that. This thing is going up a bit. I want to take that to there. Okay, that should pull that back down. We are falling a little bit, but I'm not too worried about that at the moment, because that may come back to us. Do that. We're going to circularize soon. It's going to be close. There we go. Oh, 45 meters per second. Wow. Right. I don't know if I cut that or if that just cut because it ran out of fuel. I literally hit the shutdown engine button as that, and there was a big fluff of flame there. That is interesting. Right. Decouple. Okie doke. Now we can close this down. We don't need this anymore. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this transfer burn for the next episode. So from me, until next time, from me until next time, and for you and all that other, let's just throw random words in, from me until next time, have a great one.